Celts were not a wily mob. 1990s. Let's see. Celts started Roma. Aha! Oh! I didn't see you guys there. Sorry for that. Technically, I was looking for Celtic history, and I was technically wanting to look up the ancient history of ancient Celts, of who was the Celtic warlord Brennus. Now, you guys might not know who Brennus was in history, because technically no history teachers told you this. But in truth, the Celts actually, I guess you might say, idolized him, but the Romans feared him. But not just Rome, but other kingdoms such as the Greeks. Here's the reason why. Pretty much back during the time of the ancient Celtic world when, I guess you might say back when the Roman Republic was a republic and before it became a late Roman Republic, it's stated that the Celts, under the guidance of the warlord Brennus, actually sacked the kingdom or city of Rome at this point. Now this is actually really cool because upon sacking Rome, this is actually what happened before the Battle of Alesia, in which many of the Romans who were supposedly fighting against the Celts at this point, or Brennus and his army, in the process pissed them off prior because of a Roman soldier stabbing a Celtic chieftain with his spear. Now, in doing so, this enraged the Celts while the Romans, ran away. And instead of giving the guy up for causing the problem, the Romans denied this and sent their own army out, thinking, we're far superior. Well, that's what they thought, and until they got themselves mowed down by Celtic horde. The Celtic horde surrounded the Romans, flanking them from all three ends, and in doing so, trapping them in a river. Now, in doing so, the Romans had a couple of options. A slight chance of running away, fighting to the death, or in the process being drowned by their own armor. And most of them drowned in their armor in fear of the Celtic army. That's technically makes sense. But now, what happened after? What did the Celts do under Brennus's command? Well, when they sacked Rome, it's stated that they actually looked at the Romans who stayed underneath the Apennine Hill, or in this case, later on in history, the place where the Roman, well, pretty much you guys know about this, the old emperor's home. It would have been below it. Now, in doing so, the Romans, like the Roman Senate or old aristocrats or whatever, they stood their ground. And in doing so, they stood like statues, it was stated. And the Celts looked at them in awe and even pulled one of their beards. Now, in doing so, one of the Romans actually used his staff and whacked a Celtic warrior in the head. Didn't kill him, it just pissed him off. The Celts then went into a rage and started to slaughter and more. And the Romans on the Apennine Hill knew that they had to do something. In order to get the Celts to stop fighting them, they decided to pay them. Now, this is where Brennus tricks them twice. Once in Alesia, and now here. This is actually really cool because in the process of actually taking a hold of them, the Celts actually doubled the weight of their weights. Now this is actually really cool. Upon adding double the weight, the Romans were starting to get really pissed. Now in doing so though, this is actually what happened. Brennus swung his heavy sword upon the weights and yelled, "Vae victis, woe to the conquered." Now, that's really cool. He tricked the Romans and he pushed it in their face. But in doing so, Brennus actually, in the process, actually went on further, and actually went further east. In doing so, he also established a Celtic colony north, or technically not north, but north of Rome, but south of the Alps, and was known as Galatia, or Gallia. this Gaul this side of the Alps. Now in doing so, the Celts kept going east, and in doing so claimed more land over and over and over again. And then when they reached, the land of Greece, this is actually the cool part. They attacked first Athens, then Sparta, then made their way to Delphi. Now, I also did a little bit of a talk about this in the Assassin's Creed Odyssey, but if you guys want to look at that, I'll put a link down below. But now, when the Celts actually attacked Athens and Sparta at Thermopylae Pass, this was the cool part. The Celts actually made a reasonable-sized raiding party to technically be like right in front of the Romans. Or Greeks, I should say. Sorry. Because technically Brennus attacked so many people, it's kind of impressive. What they did is actually, here's a raiding party. Here's a massive army. But here's the thing. The party ain't attacking. That's because the main army was going around, using the same type of pass that was used to, well, flank the Greeks during the time of the Persian Wars. Doing so, the Celts ambushed all the Greeks in the process and slaughtered them. The Celts later on sacked Athens and Sparta, and at this point they were sacked to destruction. And that's when they made their way to Delphi, or Delphi, either way you want to pronounce it. And upon sacking it, the Celts sacked many temples of riches and gold. That was when a massive thunderstorm bursts from the very skies. Terrified by this, the Celts were feared. Now, I can hear you guys already. Templar Celts are supposed to be fearless warriors. Well, yeah, that's the thing. Celts are fearless warriors. But the only thing they fear are their gods. The only thing they fear is the sky falling down upon them and destroying them. Technically, the Celts don't fear anything. If it's man. Man they do not fear. Their gods, yes. So you see the difference. Now, in doing so, the Celts in the process managed to run away up until they reached somewhere north of Thermopylae. Upon doing this, guess who attacked them from the rear? The Greeks. But as well, the Greeks as well used the same scouting or little shepherd area in order to, well, surround the Celts, though it didn't work. Even though the Greeks actually managed to manufacture a hoplite formation, problem is, though, the Celts were wily warriors. And as well, they did not fear anything. This terrified the already broken army of the Greeks. How so? Well, it's like this. The only type of soldiers they had right now were reserves, and these guys hardly saw combat. In other words, these guys were just in training, or guys that they had just taken up arms. So in other words, these guys did not know anything. But as well, Brennus was actually struck 3 times by javelins. Now this is actually the cool part, what actually happened next. Brennus was stated to have kept fighting over and over and slashed his longsword, killing Greeks one by one. It was only 3 days later that he died from his wounds. Of where his grave is right now, we don't know, since nobody knows where it is. It was stated to have been planted near a mountainside, where it could be seen by the gods, but not seen by the world of man. So in other words, we need to get a god's perspective. In other words, get an airplane and just look over mountainsides. But as well, Brennus was still the greatest warrior in history, and his flock of Celts even still managed to go west. Now this is actually still the cool part. They went all the way west and as well all the way east, into the lands of Turkey and back into the lands of the Slavic regions of the Balkans. Still though, Celts of Brennus, that remembered Brennus, was known as songs of heroes and songs of great warrior. So although we don't know much history on Brennus, since not that many people know of him, But I will put a link down below for you guys if you guys want to know more about Brennus and the history of him sacking Rome and such. Anyways, guys, this is Templar. Have a good day. And always remember to keep your swords unsheathed.